Good evening, everyone. I want to start today by asking you to take a moment and think about something deeply personal. I want you to ask yourself, when was the last time you truly felt like you were being yourself? Not the version of yourself that others expect or want you to be, but the person you are at your core. Embracing your authenticity begins with the courage to show up as you are, without masks, pretenses, or the desire to fit into a predefined mold. In a world that often values conformity and external validation, it can feel risky to be yourself, especially when the pressure to meet certain standards can be overwhelming. But the truth is, your authenticity is one of the most powerful assets you have. It's not just about being true to your personality or preferences, but about aligning your actions, values, and beliefs. Authenticity is the deep connection between who you are on the inside and how you present yourself to the world. It's not about being perfect, but about being real. When you embrace your authenticity, you free yourself from the constraints of societal expectations. You begin to realize that your worth doesn't depend on how well you fit into someone else's idea of success, beauty, or happiness. Instead, it's rooted in the unique combination of experiences, values, and perspectives that make you you. The act of embracing authenticity is about moving away from the idea that you need to change or adapt for approval. It's about letting go of the fear that others might not like or accept the real you. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. After all, we are taught from a young age to conform, to fit in, to meet expectations, to please others. Many of us grow up believing that if we don't meet certain standards, we won't belong or succeed. This often results in suppressing parts of ourselves that might seem too different or out of place. However, the more we hide who we truly are, the more we risk losing touch with our sense of self. This disconnection can lead to feelings of confusion, frustration, and a lack of fulfillment. It can also manifest in relationships that feel shallow or strained because we are not fully showing up in them. But when we allow ourselves to be authentic, we start to build a stronger foundation for our lives. We stop pretending to be someone we're not in order to fit in, and instead we cultivate relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. This doesn't mean everyone will always agree with you or like you, but it means that the connections you make will be real, grounded in the truth of who you are. Being authentic means you can create a space where you are accepted and loved for what you bring to the table, not for the persona you've constructed. Living authentically also means making decisions that align with your values and beliefs, even when it's difficult. It means not compromising your integrity for the sake of convenience or others' approval. Authenticity asks you to stay true to your inner compass, even if it means stepping away from situations or people that don't honor or respect who you are. It takes great courage to make choices that honor your truth, especially when doing so might feel isolating or challenging. But over time, living in alignment with your values will bring a sense of inner peace and confidence that comes from knowing you're being true to yourself. Another important aspect of embracing authenticity is the ability to acknowledge and accept all parts of yourself, including the flaws and imperfections that you may have once tried to hide. We live in a world where perfection is often celebrated, and we're taught to hide our vulnerabilities or weaknesses. However, true authenticity involves embracing your whole self, your strengths, your quirks, and your insecurities. It's recognizing that being human means being imperfect. Rather than seeing flaws as weaknesses, you begin to view them as part of your unique makeup. These imperfections add depth to who you are and contribute to your growth and resilience. When you accept yourself fully, you create space for others to do the same. Finally, embracing your authenticity means embracing change. As human beings, we are constantly evolving. Our thoughts, beliefs, and identities can shift over time as we learn more about ourselves and the world around us. Authenticity isn't about remaining static. It's about being in tune with who you are at any given moment and being willing to adapt and grow in ways that feel true to you. This means that your authentic self is not a fixed destination, but a journey, a continuous process of self-discovery and alignment with your core values. Living authentically may not always be the easiest path, but it's undoubtedly the most fulfilling. It's about showing up for your life and for others in a way that feels genuine and true. When you stop pretending to be someone else, you make room for the real you to shine through. And in doing so, you allow others the freedom to do the same. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness in a world that values strength, independence, and control. Yet, true connection is born from the willingness to show up with all of our imperfections, fears, and uncertainties. Vulnerability is not about being exposed or fragile. It's about embracing the rawness of being human. It's about letting go of the facades we build to protect ourselves and instead choosing to stand in our truth, even when it's uncomfortable. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to the possibility of genuine connection with others. At the core of vulnerability is the idea that we all have something to offer, something to give that is uniquely ours. However, to offer ourselves fully, we must first be willing to let others see us for who we really are. This means revealing not only our strengths, but also our fears, our struggles, and our wounds. It requires the courage to share our story without hiding the parts we think might make us unworthy or imperfect. Vulnerability asks us to trust others with the most intimate parts of ourselves, even though we cannot control how they will respond. It's a leap of faith, a step into the unknown, and yet it is the only way to form deep, meaningful relationships. When we hide our vulnerabilities, we keep others at a distance. We may appear strong or composed on the outside, but internally, we carry a sense of isolation and disconnection. We may find ourselves surrounded by people, but still feel alone because we've built walls to protect ourselves. Vulnerability, on the other hand, allows us to break down these walls and let people see us as we truly are. It's through this openness that trust is built, and trust is the foundation of any real relationship. Whether it's a friendship, a romantic partnership, or a professional connection, vulnerability is what allows us to form lasting bonds based on authenticity rather than pretense. At the same time, vulnerability requires courage. It takes courage to show up as ourselves in the world, knowing that we may not be accepted or understood by everyone. It takes courage to speak our truth, to share our deepest feelings, and to ask for help when we need it. Vulnerability can feel like a risk because it involves exposing ourselves to the possibility of rejection or judgment. But without this risk, we limit our ability to connect with others on a deeper level. True vulnerability isn't about being perfect or putting on a brave face. It's about being honest with ourselves and others about where we are, even if it feels messy or uncertain. Moreover, vulnerability is not just about opening up to others, but also about being vulnerable with ourselves. It's about being honest about our own emotions, our fears, and our desires. Often, we spend so much time trying to suppress our feelings or avoid discomfort that we forget to acknowledge what we're truly experiencing. But when we allow ourselves to sit with our own vulnerability, we create space for self-acceptance and growth. By facing our inner challenges and embracing our imperfections, we cultivate a sense of resilience and strength. Vulnerability, in this sense, is a pathway to healing. It's through accepting our own vulnerability that we become more compassionate toward others and more willing to meet them where they are. The beauty of vulnerability lies in its ability to foster empathy. When we allow ourselves to be open and real, we invite others to do the same. This creates an environment of mutual understanding where people feel seen and heard for who they truly are. In turn, this strengthens our relationships and deepens our connections. Vulnerability also encourages us to let go of comparison and judgment. When we stop hiding behind masks and pretending to be perfect, we begin to appreciate the imperfections in others. We stop measuring our worth against someone else's and instead celebrate the unique qualities that make each person special. The paradox of vulnerability is that while it feels like a risk, it is ultimately what brings us closer to others and to ourselves. It's through vulnerability that we experience the full spectrum of human emotions, the joy, the pain, the love, and the sorrow. These are the moments that make us feel alive, that connect us to our shared humanity. Vulnerability allows us to stop pretending and start living fully and authentically. It's in this space of openness and honesty that true connection is born. Courage is the foundation of living true to yourself. It is the quiet strength that propels us to stand firm in our truth, even when it's easier to conform or hide. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. It's the willingness to move forward, even when the road ahead is unclear or the potential for failure looms large. When we choose courage, we are choosing to honor our authentic selves, regardless of the discomfort or risk involved. Courage allows us to break free from the confines of expectations, both internal and external, and step into the person we are meant to be. Choosing courage means confronting the fear that so often holds us back. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of rejection. These are powerful forces that can keep us stuck in places that are not aligned with who we truly are. The fear of not being accepted, of not being good enough, can make us shrink, silence our voice, and hide the parts of ourselves that we believe are unworthy. But courage is the antidote to fear. It's the strength to face the unknown, the strength to be vulnerable, the strength to stand tall even when the world around us may seem uncertain or unwelcoming. It's about knowing that the discomfort you feel when being true to yourself is often the very thing that will lead to personal growth and connection. Living courageously often requires us to make difficult decisions that may challenge the status quo or upset the comfort of those around us. Sometimes courage is about saying no to something that doesn't align with our values or priorities, even when we fear disappointing others. It's about setting boundaries and protecting our energy, knowing that we can't pour from an empty cup. Courage is also about speaking up for what we believe in, even when our voice shakes. It's about advocating for ourselves and others, even when the stakes are high. Standing firm in our truth can feel like a risk because it challenges the norms and expectations that have been placed upon us, but in reality, this is where we find our power. When we cultivate courage, we stop waiting for permission from others. We stop seeking validation from the outside world and begin to trust our inner voice. We begin to make choices that align with our values, that reflect who we are and what we believe. This might mean taking a different path than those around us or stepping away from relationships or situations that no longer serve us. Courage means not settling for a life that is less than what we deserve. It's the ability to choose authenticity over convenience, honesty over superficiality, and depth over appearance. Courage also means embracing vulnerability. It takes courage to show our true selves, to reveal our imperfections, and to ask for help when we need it. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, but it is actually a sign of strength. It takes incredible courage to be open and honest about our fears, our struggles, and our desires. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we are saying, I trust you with my truth, and that in itself is an act of immense courage. It is through vulnerability that we form the deepest connections, both with others and with ourselves. Furthermore, courage is not something that you are born with. It is a practice. It's something that grows over time as we face our fears and take action despite them. Each time we choose courage over comfort, we become stronger and more resilient. Each time we face rejection or failure and continue moving forward, we build our confidence and expand our capacity to handle life's challenges. Courage is cultivated through consistent action, not through waiting for the perfect moment or the absence of fear. It is the willingness to step into the unknown, to take risks, and to trust that no matter what happens, we will be okay. The beauty of courage is that it is contagious. When we choose courage, we inspire others to do the same. Our willingness to stand in our truth can give others the permission and the strength to stand in theirs. Courage creates a ripple effect, one that can change not only our own lives, but the lives of those around us. It encourages others to embrace their authenticity, to face their fears, and to take bold steps toward living a life that is true to who they are. In the end, courage is the key that unlocks the door to living an authentic life. It is the driving force that allows us to show up as we are, to speak our truth, and to make choices that honor our deepest values. It is the strength to move forward, even when the path is uncertain, and the belief that no matter what happens, our authenticity is worth fighting for. Giving yourself permission to be imperfect is one of the most freeing acts of self-compassion that you can offer yourself. We live in a world that often promotes perfectionism, where flaws are hidden and success is measured by an unattainable standard. The pressure to be perfect, to meet the expectations of others, and to never show weakness can create a heavy burden that is nearly impossible to carry. We have been taught to avoid mistakes, to hide our flaws, and to present only our best selves to the world. But the truth is, perfection doesn't exist, and trying to attain it only leads to burnout, self-judgment, and a deep sense of disconnection from who we really are. When we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, we take a powerful step towards self-acceptance. Imperfection is an inherent part of being human. None of us are flawless. We all have our strengths, our weaknesses, our successes, and our failures. But it is through our imperfections that we learn, grow, and evolve. When we accept that being imperfect is normal, we stop viewing ourselves through a lens of criticism. We stop measuring our worth by how closely we adhere to some idealized version of ourselves. And instead, we embrace who we are exactly as we are in this moment. It's through this acceptance of our imperfections that we find peace and begin to cultivate a healthier relationship with ourselves. Letting go of the need for perfection means allowing ourselves to fail, to stumble, and to make mistakes without attaching shame to those experiences. We often fear failure because it feels like a reflection of our inadequacy, but failure is not a measure of our worth. It's simply a part of the process of growth. Every time we fail, we have the opportunity to learn, to try again, and to improve. Without failure, there is no growth. When we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, we give ourselves permission to fail, and in doing so, we free ourselves from the crippling fear of not being good enough. Imperfect moments are also the ones where we experience the most genuine connection with others. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and imperfect, we create space for others to do the same. Authenticity is built on shared experiences of imperfection, whether it's a mistake made in a conversation, a project that didn't go as planned, or a moment when we needed help but couldn't ask. These imperfections invite empathy, understanding, and kindness. When we allow others to see us at our most human, we offer them the opportunity to connect with us on a deeper level. This is how true relationships are built, not on perfection, but on the understanding that we are all works in progress, doing the best we can. One of the most powerful aspects of giving ourselves permission to be imperfect is the freedom it brings. When we let go of the need to be perfect, we release the constant pressure to meet others' expectations. We stop spending our energy trying to live up to a version of ourselves that doesn't exist, and instead focus on being the best version of who we are in the present. This shift in mindset allows us to embrace our true selves without fear of judgment or rejection. We begin to prioritize our own well-being and growth over the opinions of others. It's also important to remember that perfectionism doesn't just affect our internal world, it can negatively impact our relationships and our ability to create. When we hold ourselves to unrealistically high standards, we expect the same from those around us. This can create tension, disappointment, and distance in our connections. By giving ourselves permission to be imperfect, we can extend the same grace to others. We stop expecting perfection from those we care about and instead allow them the freedom to be flawed and human. This creates a more compassionate environment where everyone can show up as themselves without fear of judgment or failure. Allowing imperfection also encourages creativity and innovation. When we remove the constraints of perfection, we create space for experimentation and exploration. Trying something new, whether it's a creative project, a new skill, or a different way of thinking, is often messy. It involves trial and error, and it's almost always imperfect, but it's through this process of experimentation that we make discoveries, learn new things, and push the boundaries of what's possible. Perfectionism stifles creativity because it demands a final, flawless product before we even begin. By embracing imperfection, we give ourselves the freedom to create, to explore, and to fail forward. When we give ourselves permission to be imperfect, we embrace the fullness of life. We recognize that there is beauty in the messy, the unfinished, and the evolving. Imperfection is not something to be ashamed of, it's something to be celebrated. It's what makes us human, and it's what connects us to one another. We are all navigating life's ups and downs, and it's through our shared imperfection that we truly understand one another. Giving ourselves permission to be imperfect means giving ourselves permission to live fully, to be authentic, and to experience life in all its beautiful complexity. Your worth is not defined by others' expectations. This is a truth that is both liberating and challenging. In a society that often measures success by external standards, how we look, what we do, how much we achieve, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that our value is tied to these external markers. We become conditioned to think that our worth is dependent on how others see us, how we compare to others, or how well we perform. But this mindset leads to a constant cycle of striving, never feeling good enough, and chasing after an idealized version of ourselves that may never be fully attainable. The truth is, your intrinsic worth has never been tied to any of these external factors. It is inherent, constant, and unchanging, regardless of the opinions or judgments of others. When we allow others' expectations to dictate our sense of self-worth, we are handing over our power. We are saying that our value is determined by forces outside of our control, and that our happiness and fulfillment are dependent on meeting other people's standards. This creates a life based on approval seeking, where every decision is filtered through the lens of how it will be perceived by others. The pursuit of external validation often leads to a deep sense of emptiness, as we are constantly looking for something outside of ourselves to fill an internal void. But no amount of recognition, praise, or success will ever be enough if we don't first recognize and honor our own worth. Recognizing that your worth is not defined by others' expectations means that you have the freedom to live according to your own values, beliefs, and desires. It allows you to take ownership of your life and your decisions without being influenced by the opinions of others. It means making choices that align with who you truly are, not based on what others think you should do. It's about trusting yourself, knowing that you are capable of creating a life that is meaningful and fulfilling on your own terms without constantly measuring yourself against someone else's version of success. When we begin to detach our worth from external validation, we start to feel more at peace with ourselves. We stop chasing after approval from others and start focusing on cultivating a sense of internal worth. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about the people in our lives or their opinions. It simply means that we no longer allow their judgments to define us. We begin to recognize that our value is inherent, not contingent on meeting someone else's expectations. This internal shift allows us to approach life with a greater sense of confidence and authenticity, knowing that we are enough just as we are. Living in alignment with your true worth also means letting go of the fear of judgment. Fear of judgment is one of the most powerful forces that keeps us from living authentically. It holds us back from speaking our truth, pursuing our passions, or stepping into new opportunities. When we are afraid of what others will think, we limit ourselves to playing small, avoiding risks, and staying within the boundaries of what is considered acceptable or safe. But when we release the need for external validation, we free ourselves from the constraints of judgment. We no longer feel the need to explain ourselves or seek approval from others. Instead, we trust that we are worthy of pursuing what makes us feel alive, regardless of how others may perceive it. This shift in mindset also empowers us to build stronger, more authentic relationships. When we stop seeking validation from others, we begin to attract people who accept us for who we truly are. We no longer need to hide parts of ourselves or try to be someone we're not to fit in. Instead, we can show up in our relationships with honesty and vulnerability, knowing that we are loved for our true selves. Relationships based on mutual respect and acceptance are far more fulfilling than those built on the foundation of trying to meet someone else's expectations. True connection happens when both people feel free to be who they are without the pressure to conform or meet external standards. Another powerful aspect of realizing that your worth is not defined by others' expectations is the ability to redefine success for yourself. Society often defines success in narrow terms: career achievements, financial wealth, social status. But when we let go of these external markers, we can create our own definition of success. Success, when based on your own values and desires, becomes more meaningful and fulfilling. It's about living a life that is true to you, where happiness, fulfillment, and peace come from within, not from external accomplishments or recognition. Ultimately, understanding that your worth is not defined by others' expectations frees you to live a life of authenticity, confidence, and joy. It's a journey of self-discovery where you begin to trust your own voice and make choices based on what truly matters to you. The opinions and expectations of others may still be present, but they no longer have the power to dictate your worth or shape your identity. You are enough exactly as you are, and your value is not dependent on anyone's approval. When you embrace this truth, you give yourself the freedom to live fully and authentically. Self-compassion is one of the most important gifts we can give ourselves. In a world that often celebrates achievement and perfection, it is easy to forget the value of kindness toward ourselves. We are often our harshest critics, constantly pointing out our flaws, mistakes, and shortcomings. But the truth is, we all deserve the same love, care, and understanding that we so freely give to others. Self-compassion isn't about indulging ourselves or excusing our flaws. It's about recognizing our humanity and embracing ourselves with warmth and understanding, even when we fall short of our own expectations. At the heart of self-compassion is the recognition that we are all imperfect. We are all doing the best we can, given our circumstances, experiences, and knowledge. Perfection is not achievable, nor is it necessary. By practicing self-compassion, we release the unrealistic expectation that we must always get everything right, that we must be flawless in all aspects of our lives. Instead, we accept ourselves with all our imperfections, knowing that it is our mistakes, our struggles, and our challenges that make us human. This shift in perspective allows us to approach ourselves with patience, grace, and understanding. One of the key aspects of self-compassion is the ability to treat ourselves with the same kindness and care that we would offer to a friend. When someone we care about is going through a tough time, we don't berate them or tell them that they're not doing enough. We listen, we offer support, and we encourage them to take care of themselves. Yet when we are struggling, we often do the opposite. We criticize ourselves, we push ourselves harder, and we tell ourselves that we're not enough. Self-compassion invites us to extend the same care and empathy to ourselves as we would to someone we love. It means offering ourselves kindness in the face of failure, self-forgiveness when we make mistakes, and gentle encouragement when we are struggling. Self-compassion also involves recognizing that suffering is a part of life. We all go through difficult times, whether it's a personal loss, a professional setback, or the weight of everyday challenges. It's easy to feel like we're alone in our pain, but self-compassion reminds us that suffering is universal. Everyone experiences hardship, and it's okay to feel hurt, sad, or frustrated. Instead of trying to suppress or ignore our pain, self-compassion encourages us to acknowledge it and be present with our emotions. It allows us to honor our feelings without judgment, knowing that they are part of our human experience. By doing so, we create space for healing and growth. Another important aspect of self-compassion is self-forgiveness. We all make mistakes, and we often hold on to guilt or shame long after the event has passed. We may replay our errors in our minds, criticizing ourselves for not doing better. But self-compassion teaches us to let go of this self-punishment and instead practice forgiveness. We acknowledge our mistakes, learn from them, and then move forward with the knowledge that we are not defined by our failures. Self-forgiveness is an act of self-love, allowing us to release the burden of guilt and create space for personal growth. Moreover, self-compassion is crucial for building resilience. Life is full of ups and downs, and we will inevitably face challenges along the way. But when we practice self-compassion, we are better equipped to handle these challenges with a sense of grace and perseverance. Rather than beating ourselves up when things don't go as planned, we learn to approach adversity with patience and understanding. We recognize that setbacks are a normal part of life and that we can navigate them without losing sight of our worth. This resilience helps us bounce back from difficult times, knowing that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. Practicing self-compassion also leads to a greater sense of well-being. When we treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, we are more likely to feel at peace with who we are. We stop striving for an unattainable ideal and instead embrace ourselves as we are, flaws, mistakes, and all. This sense of acceptance allows us to experience more joy, gratitude, and contentment in our daily lives. It frees us from the constant pressure to be perfect and opens the door to a deeper sense of fulfillment. However, self-compassion is not always easy. We are often conditioned to believe that self-criticism is necessary for growth and improvement. But in reality, harsh self-judgment can have the opposite effect, leading to stress, burnout, and feelings of inadequacy. By embracing self-compassion, we shift away from this mindset and create a healthier, more balanced relationship with ourselves. We recognize that we are worthy of love, respect, and kindness simply because we are human. We don't need to earn our worth. It is already inherent in who we are. Ultimately, self-compassion is about showing up for ourselves, even when things aren't perfect. It's about embracing our humanity and offering ourselves the same care and kindness we would extend to a loved one. When we practice self-compassion, we create a foundation of emotional well-being that supports us through life's challenges, helps us learn from our mistakes, and allows us to celebrate our successes with gratitude and humility. By choosing to be kind to ourselves, we open the door to greater happiness, peace, and resilience. In the journey of being true to yourself, the key lies in embracing authenticity, practicing self-compassion, and living courageously. It's about acknowledging our imperfections, freeing ourselves from the weight of others' expectations, and giving ourselves permission to be human. By recognizing our inherent worth and choosing to honor our true selves, we build a life that reflects who we really are. In doing so, we cultivate a deep sense of fulfillment, resilience, and connection with others. Living authentically is not always easy, but it is the most powerful path to a meaningful and joyful life.